All right, let's actually get a rocket now. Come on now, man. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 116. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing my first tattoo that I've ever got. I'm looking forward to this one for sure. So I'll go ahead and show y'all the tattoo right here. So if you can see it, hold up, man. Hold up, man. See that right there? It says sacrifices. Yes, sir. Really, really clean. Healed up very, very well. Thankfully, right? Um, but yeah, it was definitely something that I kind of wanted to get. I didn't know if it was gonna be my first one or not, but I definitely wanted to get it, um, because it was very very cool concept in my mind, and I think it turned out very very well. So a few things I want to mention when I go ahead and start this. Make sure you go ahead and follow me on TikTok, just Life of Champ Podcast on TikTok, as well as make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube Shorts, as well as my YouTube clips that I will be posting here very very soon. Um, I've been having trouble trying to make the time to go ahead and get back on that grind because that's its own separate grind. But I'll be back on it very very soon. Um, Other than that, so yeah, let's go. Let's start the podcast with this, right? So sacrifices, so many sacrifices, man. So it's sacrifices in itself. Making sacrifice potentially could be a necessary evil that you must make in your life. Period. Right? Sacrifices are things that all people will need to make in their life. Whether you like to admit it or not, you're going to be sacrificing one thing for another. Even if you don't exactly view it like that, if you choose one thing, that means you're sacrificing all the other things. So it was such an absolute essential thing in my life. And also, like I said, life is not going to come with just one sacrifice. Life is going to come with many, many different sacrifices that you must make. Um, but I want to get into that. I want to get into that a little bit. But before that, I want to give you guys some of the foundation of kind of how I came up with this idea, right? So, a few things. I seen a few basketball players with similar tattoos. If I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I seen one basketball player. Should I mention their name? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, sure. I'll mention it. His name's Tyler Hero. He has red tattoos. He also has light skin like I do, and I really like the concept of his tattoo. So I wanted to go ahead and take it and add my own spin to it. Also, I seen a few people have just sacrifice on their body. They had tattoos like that, and I wanted to, like I said, make it different. So that's what I went ahead and did. I added the S at the end, obviously. So it is sacrifices because, quite frankly, yes, you must sacrifice in life, but you are making sacrifices constantly. And yeah, so that's kind of how I want to go ahead and start it. So yeah, I'll show you one more time. I'll show you one more time, man. Hold up, man. This shit's clean, man. This shit's clean, man. Absolutely clean, man. Fantastic workout today as well. Hit chest, of course. Come on, you know what time it is, man. You know what time it is. So yeah, let's get into today's topic, right? So sacrifices. Now, you're going to be making them regardless of whether you would like or not, right? So with this being said, you must very very carefully figure out exactly what sacrifices you must make in order to achieve the life that you want to have. Because for the most part, you watching this are not doing exactly what you need to do. There's things that you need to sacrifice in this life in order to get to where you want to go. Period. Right? Everybody watching this should all be on that same page when it comes to that. Right? This is all gonna apply to you. You are not in the position that you want to be in right now. In order to get in that position that you want to be, you must sacrifice things right now, even if they feel great. You must sacrifice not only things, not only life situations, not even only people, but you must sacrifice whatever is necessary in your own mind of when you create your own empire in your own mind. If there's anything that's in the way, if you perceive it to even have the slightest inclination that it could potentially get in the way, it's probably getting in the way at some type of way. So with that being said, that is going to be one of the things that you must sacrifice as well, right? So everybody's going to have their own individual sacrifices that they must make in order to get to where they want to get to. So I can name some of the ones that I've made, but everybody's journey is going to look different, period, right? So you, like I said, you must just analyze. You must be very, very thorough with your thinking, right? And some of these things you probably have thought about before, right? It'd probably be better. My life would probably be better if I sacrificed this. If I didn't do this certain thing, my life would probably be better, right? So you say certain things like that in your own mind. At least that's what I do sometimes. And from there, it's gonna be one thing to go ahead and recognize it, and then the actual implementation and the application is going to be a little bit more difficult. That's going to have a little bit more pains in the process. At least that's what I personally noticed, right? When I went ahead and made the sacrifice of something, it's something that I first recognized and then later I corrected, right? Not everybody's going to be able to recognize exactly what they need to sacrifice and then sacrifice it right then and there, right? Most people don't work like that, right? And I'm not personally one that works like that. Even though some might say that I definitely sacrifice things or are willing to sacrifice things a little bit more than most people. But like I said, sacrifice is absolutely necessary, man. Absolutely necessary. And another thing I want to mention as well is when you choose to make these certain sacrifices, you must be very very clear and intentional with your choosing, right? Yeah, I would say it's just as simple as that, right? I don't think I could have said that any better. You must be very clear and intentional with what you're choosing to sacrifice. So, like I said, the sacrifices are going to look they're going to look different for everybody, man. So, maybe you need to sacrifice some people in your life, right? This is going to be one sacrifice that is probably going to be damn near the hardest one to make. There's people right now probably in your life, and hopefully not, that you must sacrifice in order to get to the next level. Whether this is friends, whether this is a romantic partner, whether this is family members, right? I hate to say it. I hate to say it, right? But you must figure out who is truly holding you back in your life, right? Who, even though it might be painful, is still worth sacrificing, right? Getting rid of them and not having them in your environment and not having them in your circle of influence. And yeah, I would say yeah, figure out maybe like I said, not this is not going to apply to everybody, but there's probably going to be some people that you must sacrifice, right? I recently had to sacrifice somebody in my own life, right? It was something that I would say I didn't want to do, but it's something that I knew I needed to do, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things in life that is an absolute necessity, right? Um, I analyzed the chessboard and I said, what is the best move? Regardless of how it makes me feel right now, what is the best chess move to make, right? And then I went ahead and made that decision, right? And I'm not saying it like I just removed all emotion because obviously when you're dealing with people, like I said, whether romantic partners, whether they're family members, or whether it's friends, whatever, right? There's gonna be some emotional tie to them, right? Because you dedicated your time, you went out of your way to go ahead and hang out with this person, right? So people are gonna be damn near one of the hardest things to go ahead and sacrifice. But and I say sacrifice in the sense that you must just get rid of them. When I say sacrifice, I'm not saying like just go and kill them. Right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying sacrifices in the sense that both of your guys' lives would be better without each other, right? Like I said, I recently had to make that. I had to make that decision, man. Like I said, analyze the chessboard and say, man, now this would be a great time, but just because it's a great time doesn't mean you should always do it, right? That's something that I've learned time and time again with this life is just because it seems like a great time, just because other people are having a great time with this thing or with this person, it doesn't mean exactly that you need to do that same thing, especially if you want to live a different life than the one they're living. So, sacrifices, like I said, with be very very clear and intentional with what you choose to sacrifice. Like I said, people is just one of those things, man. It's gonna be one of the toughest things. And like romantic partners, that's one thing, right? Romantic partners, that's probably gonna be one of the hardest things to sacrifice along with family, right? Family, another thing that for some people must be a necessary sacrifice. Whether it's, um, they're not exactly contributing to the goals that you want to go ahead and pursue for yourself. They're holding you back. They're not giving you the most uplifting words that you need in order to go ahead and thrive. I know a lot of people who probably wish that they could sacrifice somebody in their life. They have somebody that's close to them that, maybe a mom or dad or somebody really, really close, maybe a sibling, something like that, where they just said, hey, if I'm going to be honest with myself, life would be better without this person, but I must still have them in life. And with those people in particular, I want to mention one thing very, very clear is even if you can't sacrifice somebody in your life, if you have the slightest inclination that you might need to sacrifice them, you probably at the very least need to go ahead and spend the least amount of time possible you want to spend the least amount of time possible with that person, right? If you can't sacrifice them, you can't just get rid of them in your life. You must just at least do that. So, yeah, for sure, for sure. Family is one of those things that's definitely difficult, but like I said, I recognize the sacrifices that you must make or that I must make in my own life, and I want to make that very very clear for people that are watching this right now that exactly are not in the position where they kind of don't they kind of they don't want to make the sacrifice because they're in a very very comfortable state, right? And I know this with a lot of different people, right? I notice this within myself. I see myself sometimes. where I'm in an environment or I'm in a setting where I'm very, very comfortable. And um uh yeah, I would say obviously in this life, and especially if you're on your self-development journey, comfort isn't exactly the most ideal thing to have, right? Now, is there going to be certain aspects of your life that probably need to be comfortable? Of course. But with that being said, the most growth happens when you're uncomfortable. And with that being said, you must intentionally, if your life isn't already uncomfortable, you must make life uncomfortable to a certain extent, right? Yeah, like, so I'm not saying going out of your way to like do some dumb shit, but I'm just saying, like, if there's a situation that, like I said, you can kind of visualize in your own mind that this you can envision this life that you could potentially live, right? This identity that you could potentially uphold, and this person you could potentially be. But you see certain things limiting you. And like I said, everybody has these things. Everybody has these things. But the question we must ask yourself is, are you truly willing to sacrifice that? Right? Some people are not, right? I see a lot of people, and I want to mention this as well because this needs to be mentioned, especially with vices, right? Vices is one of those things that I talk about time and time again on this podcast, and it's because I recognize that it's the downfall of many men. It's the downfall of shit, most people damn near. And with that being said, like I said, excessive drinking, excessive smoking, smoking nick, smoking cigarettes, um, doing other, drugs of choice, right? Or even having a dependency on certain things, right? That aren't exactly, chemically stimulated, right? Um, those are the things that are going to be one of the hardest things that you probably must sacrifice, right? It's going to be one of the hardest things you must sacrifice. Um, and I'm sure you watching this, I'm sure you see time and time again where there's certain people that just absolutely ruin their lives because they refuse to make one sacrifice. They refuse to compromise one aspect of their life in order to thrive in many different areas because they were comfortable. They were comfortable where they were. They seen the problems. They seen that if they decided to move against this, that their life potentially could be better. But instead of making that sacrifice, they stayed in the same exact spot for the rest of their life, right? I see it time and time again, man. You see the bums on the road, man. You see the bums on the road, man. That person probably needed to make a sacrifice. That person probably didn't make the sacrifice, and then now they're living in an unfortunate situation. But that is just life, right? There's got to be a point in time where you really look at your life and say, man, enough is enough, right? I deserve better than this, right? I need to demand more from myself, and sometimes it's not even more. Sometimes you need to do less, right? It's not about just doing the most. Sometimes it's just about not doing it at all. We're not doing whatever, sacrificing it to the point where you're not doing it, right? Um, in another one, I'll say, like I said, the alcohol one thing is, everybody can see that. Everybody's seen somebody ruin their lives because of alcohol. Everybody's seen this shit. Like, it's not something that's foreign to society. And one thing that I want to mention as well, which is a very, very hard sacrifice for people to make, but I think it's an absolute necessity when it comes to just trying to build the best character you possibly can in this game of life, is also women, people with nick addictions, right? That shit is so crazy. Or smoking cigarettes, right? Whatever it is, to have such an unhealthy dependency on something, and your entire mood switches because you don't have that, is so crazy. I've seen it time and time again where somebody loses their little cancer stick, right? They flip their shit. They literally throw up everything in their environment. If they can't see it in their environment, they'll just fucking go crazy just to try to find it, right? And they know it's bad. They know they probably shouldn't be doing it, but yet, guess what? They refuse to make the sacrifice. Now, one thing that I've noticed within my life, and this is something that, like I said, I can speak to from my own personal experience. I don't know if you guys have experienced the same thing or have been at least observant enough to go ahead and recognize these certain things. But when I start to sacrifice certain things and also to do other positive things in replacement of that, I seen these synchronicities. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said that right. Synchronicities with my life, where I seen certain things happen, certain a positive counter loop happen because of those certain decisions that I made or the certain things I was willing to sacrifice. Right. So one thing I want to mention as well is I'm a person who's able to drink, able to do whatever he would like. Right. But now, just because I can do that doesn't mean I should. So I try to limit that as much as I possibly can. Now, of course, there's going to be certain occasions where you're probably going to do it. But at the same time, to be willing to sacrifice it in such a way where if you observe people your same age doing the same type of shit, and you say, hey, I don't want to be like them. So I'm going to sacrifice what I need to sacrifice in order to not live the life that they're living. That's going to be one thing that, whether you like to admit it right now or later, is something that's going to be an absolute necessity for most people's lives, right? Especially if you're trying to stay away from being average, which this entire podcast is trying to elevate everybody above average at the very least. But yeah, you must be willing to make the sacrifices, man. Like I said, those vices, man, those vices will kill you, man. Those vices will ruin your life if you let them, right? And most people do, unfortunately. But yeah, give me 1 second. If you're in here, I appreciate you for stopping by. Make sure you want to leave a comment just like see who's in here. And yeah, we got a few people in here, man. Come on now. Probably needs it. Give me a second. All right, let me get back to it. One thing I want to mention as well with sacrificing anything in this life, and I find this very very funny because I've experienced this in my own life. Sexy Latinas ruin me. Hey, that might be the sacrifice you need to make, man. It's sad, man, but hey, might be the sacrifice you need to make, unfortunately. All right, one thing I want to mention as well is, what are things right now in your life that seem damn near impossible to sacrifice? Because I've had this in my own life where I was like, there's just no way. I heard somebody talk about this and I'm like, there's just no way I'm ever going to make that sacrifice. There's just no way. Why would I compromise myself, right? Why would I do that when this feels so comfortable, when I'm so familiarized with this certain thing that I'm doing, whatever it was, right? Why would I go away from that? Even though I know damn well that if I made that sacrifice, my life would probably be better, but why would I do that? It's so much easier to do this, right? And in those moments that you feel that certain type of way about those certain things, right? You might need to make the sacrifice, man. Unfortunately you might need to make the sacrifice. Fortunately for your life, but unfortunate for the current self that you are right now. So, yeah, that is one thing that I recognize within my own life where there are certain things that I needed to, um, or I felt like I needed to sacrifice that damn near felt impossible, right? Happened too many times, man. Where I'm just like, man, there's just like I said, there's just no way. There's no way. And then you kind of get to the point where you kind of remind yourself. You remind yourself that there is another way. There is truly another way. There's truly another way of living life that exists outside of whatever you're doing, and it could potentially reap you more benefits. So you must probably make the decision that you need to make for yourself, right? You must sacrifice what you need to sacrifice, right? I've done it time and time again, and some of the time it's not even what you do, it's what you don't do, right? Yeah, I would say it's as simple as that, man. Like I said, if you're in here, make sure you leave a comment. If there's anything that I'm saying that is resonating with you, I want you to go ahead and let me know. Whether you're watching this or watching this live, make sure you go and let me know for sure. All right. Yeah, and one thing I want to mention as well. Life is about making sacrifices in the present to truly enjoy your future without any type of, or feeling any type of way about your past self, right? I'm going to say that one more time. Life is about making sacrifices in the present moment to truly enjoy your future without feeling any type of way about your past self, right? Now, sometimes you might still feel some type of way about your past self. Looking back at past champ, this man could have been better. Of course, he could have been better, but he eventually made some sacrifice. So I look back and say, man, he was at least on the right path. That's the way that I see it personally. So, for yourself, right? When you look at your current situation, and you envision yourself having this vision of living a life that is better than the one that you have right now. You see yourself in a way that isn't exactly physically present, but you see your own potential, right? What are the things that are limiting you from truly achieving that, right? Like I said, even if it fucking sucks, even if it sucks to make the sacrifice, man, you need to at least be thinking like that. And at the very least, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast before, you need to start feeling guilty, man. I'm sorry, I know that feeling sucks, but the only way to make a sacrifice truly is to feel guilty for doing it. The second you start feeling guilty for doing it, eventually you're going to stop, right? That's something that I've seen time and time again with my own life where I'm like, damn, man, I feel guilty for doing this because I know damn well I'm not supposed to be doing it. I know damn well I'm not supposed to be doing it. But I still did it, and guess what? Same fucking result. I mean, I still felt guilty for doing it, right? So, with that being said, as long as you can at least be mindful that that's something that you're probably going to need to sacrifice in the future, you're already going to be in such a better position than most people, right? And yeah, most people are just super content, or at the very least, even if they don't say that they're content, they act like they're content. So therefore, they refuse to make the sacrifices. They say, hey, life could be better, but life is actually not that bad right now. And now, of course, my life is not that bad, but at the same time, man, it's not about the worst case scenario. It's always about the best case scenario, man. I'm always thinking, man, life could be better. I'm not always thinking life could be worse. I'm thinking life's not that bad right now, but shit, it could be a hell of a lot better, man. But now, how am I supposed to do that? How am I even gonna manage to even think of that? Then you start thinking, man. You start having that internal dialogue that everybody should have at the very least. But yeah, give me 1 second. All right. One thing I want to mention as well is maybe there's even a certain identity that you must sacrifice within your own self, right? There's certain identities that you uphold right now that are not conducive to the life that you want to live, right? Whether it's, you know, even the self-talk that you have for yourself, the I can'ts, the I could nevers, the I would never, anything doubting yourself, doubting your human ability, right? Those are things that you must sacrifice. Those are certain negative identities that you must truly analyze and say, shit, well, that's not helping my life if I think like that. So therefore, shit, I might as well make the sacrifice. I might as well at least start the process of making the sacrifice, which is going to look like recognizing it, recognizing that it happens, be a complete observer when it does happen, and also be feeling guilty for not making the sacrifice later on. And like I said, that's such a weird way to think about it. But yeah, that is the exact way of how to go about making sacrifices within your own life. They're going to be hard. They're going to be uncomfortable, right? But at the same time, they're also going to be necessary. Painful as hell. Absolutely necessary, man. Absolutely necessary. And like I want to reiterate that, man. The identity thing is such a big thing because maybe you're doing everything right physically, right? The odds of you doing everything right physically is probably low. But let's just say you're doing everything right physically. You might still have some mental challenges to overcome, right? And most people do have mental challenges to overcome. And with that being said, most of the mental challenges that you'll overcome all stem back to the identity that you uphold, the certain beliefs and mindsets that you have about yourself and your ability. That is what most of the mind's vulnerability is, for the most part, is you not being confident enough within yourself, you not having what you want to have right now, right? Those certain things are going to lead to a lacking perception of yourself. And with that being said, there's certain tendencies that I would say I view in most people, unfortunately, right? And you can't necessarily blame them because a lot of people are just so impressionable with their own environment, which most people, like I said, most people are victim of, that they start to pick up certain tendencies, certain habits, certain sayings, certain identities that is familiarized with the environment that they're in. So therefore, they will develop a very very nasty habit of just talking bad about themselves. Like I said, upholding the identities that they truly know don't do anything for them, but they continue to do it. Um, Man, make the sacrifice, man. Make the sacrifice. If you say some shit that comes out of your mouth, and I do this all the time with my friends, man. If they say I can't, what are you talking about, bro? What do you mean you can't? Don't say that, man. Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't limit your human potential. Big Sean has a great lyric. He goes, "Made my I see." He said, "Made my blueprint, so my life got no ceiling." That's exactly the way you need to think. That's exactly why I love his music because of those certain sayings that he has. Right? You must believe. You must believe this. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but you must believe you have no limits, man. You have no limits to your potential. You must truly believe that. And the second you start to believe that, and at the very least, me saying this might be far fetched, but you just need to hear that constantly over and over again. From there, you could say, hey, what if that is right? What if that is right? What if I can do what I want to do? What if I can live the life that I want to live? Then you start to figure out how to do it, and then you fucking do it. That's the way to do it. But you might need to sacrifice certain identities or certain mindsets that hold you back, right? I see it too often, and it is something that I would say is honestly embarrassing, right? And most people don't even recognize it to be embarrassing because it's just life to them. It's just life to them. If I hear somebody talking bad about themselves, man, I'm just like, man, you're fucking down terrible, man. You're down really bad. And if I'm not observing that, I'm at the very least saying something to them, saying, hey, don't don't say that. Don't say that. Um, yeah, I'm very very conscious of that. I'm very very conscious of that when it comes to other people. If I'm around you, and like I mentioned earlier, right? I don't want that to wear off on me, right? I said earlier that your environment is you're very very impressionable to the environment that you're in, and if your environment consists of certain things or certain people that have limiting identities, then you're automatically going to start creating limits for yourself and within your own mind, right? And I don't like to live like that. So therefore, I either correct them or I get rid of them. That's it. That's all I do. That's all I do, man. Like I said, I either correct them or I sacrifice them, man. Because you must sacrifice them. You must sacrifice them. Because what's the point of having them, man? If they're just what's the point, man? What's the point? Our minds can be our worst enemy. Jaden, you're exactly right. Our minds can be our worst enemy. I would say our mind, our minds are our worst enemy, right? And I would say because of the simple fact that most people's suffering exists only within the mind and doesn't even actually exist within the real world, right? They'll go through an event. It kind of goes something like this, right? They'll go through an event. They're not exactly happy with the results. Then their mind creates and makes them relive the certain situations that were unfortunate, that they view to be unfortunate, but they can no longer change. So the mind becomes an enemy, right? The mind can also become an enemy before you even do something. Before you even get into a situation, your mind's already creating, hopefully not, right? But most of the time, your mind's already creating some type of um, preconceived notion of how the certain situation will play out. Even though it hasn't even played out yet, you might have some anxiety because of some thought that you had, which is all within your own mind, right? It's all within your own mind. If you go through something and you literally okay, obviously it depends on what it is, right? But if you go through something and you let that linger on in your mind instead of making that necessary sacrifice, saying, hey, I'm accepting of what the situation is in my life for what it is, right? And I can't change it, so therefore there's no point of letting it consume so much of my energy, right? The second you're able to sacrifice that, your mind is no longer going to be your enemy. Also, when you sacrifice the beginning of that before you go into a situation, and you just say, whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens, right? I can't control if this is gonna not specifically when this happens or how this happens, right? It's just gonna go the way it needs to go, the way it was supposed to go, and then I can only do whatever I can do after that, right? You must sacrifice. You must sacrifice certain tendencies that you have within your own mind, man. Yeah, I would say like I said, I'm agreeing with Jaden. Jaden, spot on with that. Our minds, no, not can be, are our worst enemy. Most people's worst enemy for sure. Give me 1 second, fellas. Like I said, if you're in here and you are, and some of the things that I'm mentioning are resonating with you, I want you to go ahead and let me know. All right. GDP, appreciate you for stopping by, man. Appreciate you for stopping by. All right. Yeah, I want to reiterate this point because this is so prevalent. This is so prevalent, man. Your lack of ability to make sacrifices within your own life will lead you to have internal conflicts, right? I've already mentioned the one of guilt for sure, right? But I want to make that very, very clear that there's sacrifices that you need to make right now in order to live the life that you want to live, right? If you are unwilling to make those sacrifices, there are definitely consequences of your actions, even if you're doing something that's great, even if you're doing something that you perceive to be great and perceive to be the most dopamine filled thing ever, right? If you're doing that too much, you're going to need to make a sacrifice for sure, right? And obviously, like I said, it depends on what it is. But if you are unwilling to make the sacrifice and you know your better self lies on the other side of you making that sacrifice, you will feel guilty, you will feel the lack of confidence, and you will feel like your potential is wasted. And that is probably one of the worst human experiences that could ever be lived, is you being in the present moment, knowing that you should be in a better place, but you settled for the life that gave you so much pleasure right now. When in reality, you should have been future focused. Like you should have been future focused like most people, man. You should have been future focused. You should have been thinking ahead, thinking 5 moves ahead instead of just saying, you know what, I'm doing this thing right now and it's great, but I probably shouldn't be doing it, but I'm still doing it, right? You're going to have internal conflicts. And some people, that is probably some of the biggest problems they deal with are those internal conflicts because they're not willing to sacrifice what they need to sacrifice, what they know they need to sacrifice, what everyone around them sees that they need to sacrifice, right? It's as simple as that, right? Like I said, one of the worst human feelings that you can possibly feel, or two of them rather, I'm gonna say all three, man. I'm gonna say all three. Guilt, feeling guilty for not doing what you know you need to do, having a lack of confidence because you didn't do what you know you needed to do, and more importantly, having that nasty feeling of having your potential being wasted because you chose to be comfortable instead of doing the right thing for your own life. And one thing I want to say is, you watching this, maybe you don't make any sacrifices after watching this, but hopefully, the next time you feel some type of guilt, some type of lack of confidence, or feel like your potential is wasted, you're going to think about this podcast and say, man, fuck, I should make this sacrifice, man. I should make the sacrifice, right? It's the second you're able to make those sacrifices, man, like I said, I'm going to speak from my own personal experiences, but I'm pretty sure some people have felt the same way, whether they're conscious of it or unconscious of it. The second you start to make sacrifices and replace those sacrifices or those things that you sacrifice for things that are going to be better for your own life, you're going to see things synchronistically work in your favor. I've seen it time and time again within my own life. The second I started doing, I know what's right for me. I see certain things. I see new opportunities coming to me. I see all these things. I see abundance in everything, right? That is the way that I personally see it, and it is something that hopefully you see for your own life, right? If you're a person that's willing to make the sacrifice, hopefully you see some type of upward, positive, productive spiral in your own life, right? But you must first make the sacrifice. You must first hold up. Making sacrifices is hard, but it's necessary. You must first live life. Then you must recognize things that you could potentially live without, or even if it would be hard to live without, you still need to make the sacrifice. Then you give it some time to observe, and like I said, you have those feelings of guilt, feelings of wasted potential, and things like that. And then eventually, you get to the point where you say, you know, man, enough is enough. I deserve more than this. I'm worth more than this. So I'll make the sacrifice. Then you make the sacrifice, and then you see the upward spiral for your own life. That is what it is, man. That is what it is. And like I said, hopefully you can take this, whether you apply this right now after watching this podcast, or at the very least, being mindful of these certain things, right? Because for damn sure I am. Man, come on now, man. I have it tatted on me, man. I have to be mindful of it, bro. Every time I see myself in the mirror, man. Champ, are you making the sacrifices you need to make, man? Are you truly living the life that you want to live right now? Okay, you're not. Perfect. What sacrifices are you willing to make? Ask yourself those questions, man. Making sacrifices will always have a positive outcome. Yes, for sure. But here's the thing. Most people are just not willing to have that initial pain, right? That initial pain, that initial discomfort is so unbearable for most people. So unbearable for most people. But just because it's unbearable doesn't mean you don't have to do it. You must still do it. You must still do it, even if, like I said, even if it feels like shit, man. You still have to do it. Yeah. That's something that, like I said, hopefully at least one person can be affected by this and say, hey, fuck, man, I'm doing this thing right now, man. I shouldn't be doing it. Fuck, I shouldn't be doing it. I know I shouldn't be doing it. I feel guilty for doing it every time. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to make the sacrifice, man. I'm going to make the sacrifice. My life's going to be better because of this. And you fully convince yourself that your life's going to be better because of this decision. And then life shows you once again, you were right. I was waiting for you to make the sacrifice. The universe talks to you, right? I was waiting for you to make the sacrifice. Now, since you've made the sacrifice, I'll start giving you things that are going to lead you to the best version of yourself, right? It's as simple as that, man. Simple as that. One thing I want to mention as well, give me 1 second, is a funny observation that I had about, sacrifices, right? You watching this podcast probably won't know this, but most people in my personal life, they know this, right? My top 3 favorite artists of all time are going to be Drake, J. Cole, and Big Sean. One thing that's common between all these people, I find this very, very funny, is they all have a song called Sacrifices. I found that very, very funny. They all have a song called Sacrifice. So you watching this, if I'm gonna give you one thing for you to go ahead and do, I want you to listen to the music. I want you to see if you like it or not. If you're willing to go ahead and do that, right? If you're willing to make the sacrifices, if you're willing to at least hear me out and kind of hear exactly what they're talking about, make sure you go ahead and listen to them. So, first one I'm going to recommend, if you're going to go ahead and do it, right? Sacrifices by Big Sean. It's going to be on this album right here. I decided, man. Fantastic song, right? I got some of the inspiration for the tattoo from this song. Man, I wish I could play it. I wish I could play it right now, man, but I'm going to have to wait till my next music live stream, and then I'll definitely play that shit. I'll play all three of them. The next one I'm going to recommend is going to be the one for Drake. Called it's on More Life. Like I said, it's called Sacrifices. It has like 2 Chainz. I think it has Young Thug on it. Great song as well. But they all talk about these certain things that they needed to sacrifice. They needed to sacrifice these comforts in order to get to the position that they wanted to get to. And they also mention, and at least Drake mentioned this within the song, is once he made the sacrifice, he's seen all of the things that were meant for him, that were waiting for him to get rid of that, to get rid of those certain things and make those sacrifices. He's seen all of the things come to fruition, right? Yeah, and like I said, the Big Sean, I got the inspiration for the title from this. Sacrifices, so many sacrifices. He said, I didn't give up so much free time knowing time ain't free. Fuck it, I sacrificed it, right? So, fellas, you listen to that song, man. Listen to that song. That shit is fantastic, man. That shit is fantastic. That's all I gotta say. And also, the one with J. Cole, it comes from this album right over here. Hold up. Right there. Revenge of the Dreamers. Fantastic album as well. Like I said, another one of those ones that makes sacrifice there, or that, has that sacrifices in that album. Definitely recommend for sure, because it's a solid, super solid album. So tap in with those for sure. Let me know what you think if you ever listen to them, right? Definitely, I'm gonna recommend them in that order, just because of relevance. I'll say that. But appreciate everyone for stopping by. If you have any comments regarding anything that I mentioned, whether you're watching this or watching this live, I want you to go and leave them in the comments. I'll give you all a few minutes, and then I will go ahead and wrap this one up, fellas. Actually, give me a second, man. I'll be right back. But I want you guys to leave me some comments, okay? Give me a second, man. All right, I'm back. Had some business I needed to handle, but I handled it. So okay. Yeah, I want to mention that as well. Is everybody that so the Life of a Champ podcast, right? The Life of a Champ podcast originally had an idea for talking about people and their journey, people that I was inspired by, right? And one thing I want to mention is all these people have made sacrifices. It's something that I observe very, very closely. Is they made sacrifices. They decided to give up their free time in order to achieve what they wanted to achieve. They were sacrificing things, and GDP just mentioned it. How about MJ? He sacrificed his childhood, right? And I want to mention with that as well is I didn't know that, but one thing I do know is Devin Booker, my favorite basketball player, which he's about to play right now here in a minute. He was also a person that needed to sacrifice his childhood, sacrifice the fun times with his friends, because he had a goal in mind to make it to the league, right? He wanted to not only make it to the league, he wanted to be one of the best players, if not the best player to ever touch a basketball, right? With that being said, in order to get to those certain positions, in order to be great, truly great in this life, you're going to need to make sacrifices. It's as simple as that, man. It's as simple as that. There's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. You're going to need to make sacrifices. Life for Champ podcast all the way up, man. Come on now. You already know what time it is, man. You already know what time it is. Come on now. But yeah, everybody that I've observed being great, and you can, go ahead and vouch for yourself, man. You do some research on some successful people. I've done it. I've done it for the last 5 years. I've done it for the last 5 years, studying certain people and why they're successful and how they became successful and the things that they needed to sacrifice. And you'd be very, very surprised, and you'd be hopefully self-reflecting about your own life and saying, "Hey, did I make the sacrifices? Am I going to make the sacrifices?" Right? You must analyze these things, man. It's just, I've seen it time and time again, man. There's just so many people who've achieved something great. They all had to make their own sacrifices. They all needed to, sacrifice their fun time with their friends, or sacrifice a certain lifestyle that they seen everybody else around them that was falling into, or sacrifice, spending time with their family. Right? That's a hard sacrifice for a lot of people to make. Uh, but the people who truly want to make that 1%, to be that 1%, right? They're gonna have to sacrifice some time with their family at the very least, right? But how bad do you want it? You must ask yourself that. You must 1,000% ask yourself this question, right? How bad do you want it? How bad do you want the life that you want to achieve in this life? If you want it bad enough, then you're going to be willing. You're going to be willing to make the sacrifices that you need to make, and it's as simple as that, man. There's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. 10,000 hours to perfect a craft. Exactly. That's what it is, man. That's what it is, right? And a part of it, in order to, put in that 10,000 hours, what are you going to be doing? What are you going to be giving up in order to make sure you have the time to put in to eventually reach that 10,000 hours? You tell me, man. You tell me. You have to figure this out for yourself, man. You have to figure this out for yourself. And like I said, man, there's certain people I know, you watching this right now, probably there's something you're doing that you probably know you shouldn't be doing, and you continue to do it. You know you need to sacrifice it, but you don't fucking do it, right? Make the fucking sacrifice, man. Make the sacrifice, man. It's gonna be painful. It's gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna be less than ideal. You're gonna want to go back after you stop doing it. You're gonna want to go back and do it again. But if you're willing to make the sacrifice, let me tell you, the benefits that you will reap because you made that sacrifice are beyond your comprehension right now. That's all I'm gonna say, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, whether you go ahead and do that, it's up to you, man. I'm just giving you the game, man. I'm giving you the game, man. That's all I'm doing on this podcast, man. I give you all the game. Now, if you want to go ahead and use it, that's up to you. At the very least, you should feel some type of way, man. You should feel some type of way. If you say, you know what, I'm doing this thing right now. Champ said to not do it, man, but I'm still doing it, man. I want you to know I think you're stupid for that. I want you to know that, man. I want you to know that. Be like, Champ thinks I'm stupid for fucking doing this shit. I want you to truly believe that, man, because you know what you need to do. Everybody knows what they need to do. Now it's a matter of you admitting that, truly admitting that, and saying, you know what, it's time to make the sacrifice. I'm done living the way that I've been living. I know I'm destined for more, so I'm willing to make the sacrifices that many people are going to make. The closer you are to making those sacrifices, like I said, everybody's gonna have their own personal journey, right? Maybe you don't make the sacrifice today, maybe you make it tomorrow, maybe you make it in the next month, maybe you make it in the next few months, maybe you make it in a year, maybe you make it in the next 5 years, right? But you at least need to be mindful that you're doing something wrong, that life could be better, that you're destined for more, that your potential is gonna be wasted if you don't do it, right? You need to be acknowledging of these things, right? And I'm saying this not only to help you guys, but also to remind myself that the more sacrifices that I'm willing to make, the life could potentially be better. Life, not potentially could be better. Life will be better in the end when it's all said and done, right? Gio, appreciate for stopping by, man. So yeah, fellas, are you willing to make the sacrifice? How bad do you want it truly? If you want it bad enough, you'll make the sacrifice. You'll get rid of the excuses. You'll make the sacrifice. Like I'd mentioned, right? Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if you feel like it's impossible to do, you must constantly remind yourself that it is probably going to need to be a sacrifice that you need to make. The better you are doing that, let me tell you, man, life is going to get better because of that. It's as simple as that, fellas. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate everyone stopping by. If you got some value from this podcast, I want you to go ahead and let me know. Few things I want to mention before I end it off. Make sure you go and follow me on TikTok, Life of a Champ Podcast on TikTok. Also, make sure to leave a like on my YouTube Shorts as well as my YouTube clips as well. Other than that, this was episode 116 of the Life of a Champ Podcast, talking about sacrifices. So many sacrifices, fellas. Make sure you go listen to those music as well. Sacrifices from Big Sean, Drake, and J. Cole. Make sure you go and listen to those songs as well. Hopefully, you get a better understanding of why I decided to get the tattoo, my first tattoo, for sure. Other than that, I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure y'all work at these motherfuckers because you know I am. Y'all have a good night. Until Thursday, make sure you tap it on Thursday. Should be a good one for sure. Y'all have a good night, and like I said, make sure y'all work at these motherfuckers, man. And make sure you're making the sacrifices, man. Your future self will thank you.